Hi, Annie. How are you? Savannah's going to join us here in just a minute. I'm really excited as we wait for her. I'm really excited to talk to her. She's really awesome. Her books are so good. I actually read one of her books from my library at at Southport High School. We have one of her books, which is pretty awesome. She is awesome. She's great. This is water, by the way, not coffee. Not this late. Yeah, I'm excited for somebody to try that tea. I might have to order some from her because it sounds really good. Now what's up with this? Guess I'll wait and see if she pops on. I didn't always like tea. Tea's like a recent love of mine as I got older. All right, awesome. Now I'll invite you, Savannah. Hi,
Hello.
how are you?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I am good. It is
Good. Awesome.
I'm excited to start. So I'm going to go ahead and just introduce. So I'm Paige Wyatt, and I am one of the founders of HL Women Writers. And this is Savannah Goins. She's our featured author this week. She has written two fantasy books that she has published right now, and you're working on the third one, correct?
Yes, it's with my editor right now.
Okay, awesome. And so we're going to talk to Savannah tonight about writing, about her hobbies, about how she gets unstuck with her writing, and how she kind of writes so much because you write pretty quickly. So a lot of people, I think, are eager to find out what your writing habits are and where you get your inspiration from and all that stuff. Is there anything that you want to say? You want to talk about the titles of your books, talk about your experience a little bit, tell us about you?
Sure. So my first book is The Gwythinian, and I love so much about this, but I have to say I have learned that when you write a fantasy book, you should not title it your made-up fantasy words because nobody can pronounce them, nobody can search them on Google, nobody can find them. So I still absolutely love my titles, but I would recommend sticking to regular words in an actual language.
I never really thought about that before, but it's probably really frustrating sometimes.
hmm I thought I was being brilliant and creative and original, and maybe I was, but not in a helpful way. Not
That's
in a
awesome.
searchable way, anyway.
I think they're awesome, though. I think you have a really cool take and unique take on dragons, which is hard to find in fantasy because it feels like it's all been done before. Which I guess brings us to our first question: what draws you to fantasy? Why do you like it so much? Why do you write it? Why do you consume it?
So what draws me to fantasy the most, honestly, is talking animals. Ever since I was a child, talking animals are my favorite thing. I wish they were real. I love them. Like the Chronicles of Narnia, I just lived in the Chronicles of Narnia when I was a kid. Like my favorite thing ever was when Shasta in the third book was like miserable and he was talking to the horse, wishing the horse could talk back, and the horse was like, "But I can." And I was like, this is the greatest moment ever. So talking animals are a big thing. I also just really love great, well done magic systems. Like I'm listening to the audiobooks for the Mistborn series right now by Brandon Sanderson. Such cool magic systems in that. And that's another thing that really draws me to fantasy.
That's awesome. Yeah, I really like magic too, and the different kinds of creatures that you can have. Definitely understand that draw. Um, what author or book has had the biggest influence on your writing?
So I pulled a couple of books off my shelf for this question. One of them, unshockingly, is Aragon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just love this book so much. And actually, Christopher Paolini, the author, wrote the first book when he was 15, and he was also homeschooled.
Oh
And
wow.
I was also homeschooled all the way through high school. And there, some people were mean to me about that and said, in negative things about how I would never be a normal person and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
seeing him produce such an amazing series and finding out that he was homeschooled was like, I can do anything no matter what anybody says. So that is just hugely encouraging to me. And then with writing craft, the Save the Cat Writes a Novel, the
Mm.
outlining method in this has just made my fast drafting and my it's the best thing about it is that I'm more organized in the beginning, so there's less revisions, because revisions are the most challenging for me. Fast
Mm-hmm.
drafting is great. I can just, fly through a fast draft, but then going and cleaning it up afterwards is way less fun. But this helps me just make things just more organized and less messy to clean up afterwards.
Awesome. Those are good
Yeah.
resources to look at. I'm always looking for new books to help me outline and plan because I am really bad at that. So thank you for that one.
Yeah.
Um, what about your ideas? So where do you come up with all your ideas? I see that Annie is in the chat and she mentioned your awesome job with animals. Does that have anything to do with your inspiration?
Yeah, so I actually worked for several years as an exotic animal veterinary technician, which
Oh,
technically I
wow.
still am. I work in a different capacity now, and my job is not quite as cool as that one, but it actually works a lot easier with my life and my schedule to be, a more committed writer. So with that, I was an anesthetist for like reptiles and small animals and birds and even some fish and some tigers, like all kinds of like everything that's not a normal pet. I got to help people learn how to take better care of them and also work with them in surgery as the anesthetist. So that was a really, really cool thing that I loved doing. Very stressful, but also
Mm-hmm.
really cool. Like it's so, so great to see, your animal wake back up from surgery and, get over the wooziness from, getting off of the drugs and everything and just, being happy and healthy and getting to send them home with their owners. Like that was just really nice. Um, I actually have a character who's based off someone that I knew from the clinic. There was this lady
Oh.
who was like an older lady who had a pet bearded dragon. And older ladies and bearded dragons just don't generally go together, but I loved it so much. And this lady dressed so classy. Like she had great style, but she was a painter and her great fancy clothes always had paint, like colorful
Oh,
paint stains
wow.
on them. And she'd always walk in like with a smock or a sweater that had paint stains all over it. And it was just such a cool look. So I'm basing a character in my current work in progress actually off of that client.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome. I love that you take inspiration from real life. That's really cool.
Hmm.
Yeah, because you have a lot of really unique ideas in your books, and I love that. I love that. I feel like
Thank you.
they're way more organic whenever they're from your real life. I
Hmm.
feel like that helps your writing. Which brings me
That,
to the next part, the next thing. We talk about fantasy. Something I personally want to know because I struggle with it a lot is world building. So, how do you world build? Because you do it so seamlessly, and I struggle with it. And I know a lot of people that struggle with it, and you can read books and tell that some people struggle with it. So, how do
mhm.
you world build? I mean, you get your idea. How does that happen?
I think a big part of it is not to try to do too much with world building, especially when you're first drafting. As you go, you might figure out some things that will serve the story better that you can add in. But I think the best thing to do to start is pick like one or two, maybe three things at the max that are going to be like your world building features, and just don't do more than that as you're just drafting to start with. Because if you come up with like a unique economy and a political system and different languages and different religions and fashions and different kinds of food, and that many things can sometimes be overwhelming, and your story may not need all of that, and it might be a lot
Mm-hmm.
of stuff that's going to just confuse readers, or that your editor might make you take out later. So I think starting with just a couple of things is really, really helpful. And usually with me, at least when I'm outlining and plotting, I get an idea, like the ideas, my world building is like necessary to the story. So it's not just like fun scenery or something. Like, it's the way the magic system works, or the way, all of the world building things, they need to be necessary and integrated into the plot.
Ah.
And as I'm building my outline and I'm drafting, the world building just kind of like all wraps in it. And that's how you know that it like fits well and belongs. Because if it's kind of like the story would be the same if you took the world building out, then
Mm-hmm.
it's not really needed. So your features need to be like wound into the rest of your story and important to all of it. I'm trying to think of a good example. Um, I can't think of a good example off the top of my head, but if I think of one, I will bring it back up.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a good point. I think maybe a lot of us try to throw everything but the kitchen sink into the world building because we feel like we have to explain all this now. That's what I always
Hmm.
fall into the trap of, like how we need to explain all of this right now. But yeah, that's a
Hmm.
good idea. Just starting with a couple things and only the
Yeah.
things that are essential with the plot. That's great.
Yeah.
Um, what about your editing? So you kind of covered your outline. You got it from the your outlining process from the book. Um, you draft pretty quickly. You just hit 50K on Nano like a few days ago.
Hmm.
Congratulations.
Thank
Um,
you.
so what about your editing style? Like, how do you approach that?
So I think the thing, like I said, the thing that helps the most with making editing easier is, for me, having a good plot, a good outline that helps me write a cleaner draft. And I know not
Mm-hmm.
everybody is a plotter, and that's fine. I found out that I'm actually more of a plantser. It's kind of a mix between the two. I plot
Yeah.
very thoroughly, but then I also get some really great ideas that there was no way for me to come up with them until after I had started
Mm.
drafting. And I totally throw those things in, and I just have to go and foreshadow them and things like that earlier on. But I guess it's a little bit different with each book as I learn and go. But basically, what I'm doing now is I have like my outline, and then I have like a fast draft, and then I'll go back through and do one set of revisions myself, because I already will know that there's scenes I need to add. There's world building that developed later on that I need to go back and add in earlier on, and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So I'll go and do that myself, and then I'll do one more read through to make sure that all the scenes are in the right order and things like that. So it's basically on, what would that be, a third draft, and then I send it to my
Mm.
critique partners and get feedback from them, make those changes, and then send it to beta readers, which is like a wider group of people. But my critique partners are just like a couple of people to read it when it's like it's as good as I can make it myself, and now I
Mm-hmm.
need people to help me see the things that I'm missing.
Okay, good. It sounds like you have a strong writing community that helps you. And I guess that brings me to another question that someone asked is how do you get plugged into the writing community? What are some good ways to find critique partners or beta readers? Because that is something that I think a lot of writers struggle with and maybe get stuck on that part.
Yeah, I think the very first part of getting in the writing community for me was actually Instagram. I
Mm.
found the writing community on Instagram and started interacting with some people, some of my best friends, one of them, Holly Davis. I don't know if you're here, Holly. Hello, if you are. But we met through NaNoWriMo on Instagram a few years ago, and I found out she lives in Chicago, which is only 4 hours away from me, and we've been to visit each other. We've been on some road trips together. Like, we've gotten to be really good friends, and we're in a mastermind group together. So like Instagram is great for finding awesome people with similar interests. But so I would say interact with people on Instagram. Don't just post and then hope people will comment. Like, go and find other people. who are, you know, doing the same kind of things, using the same hashtags as you, comment on their stuff, you know, DM them some legitimate questions if you have them. And I think that's really helpful for growing on Instagram. And then if you also use a writer specific Instagram, because if you're wanting to grow your writing community, you want to have something that's focused on writer stuff, because the amount of people who are interested in all facets of your life that you might post on your personal Instagram is like the Venn diagram just does not overlap well for like writer, like the writing community, and then all like your random other stuff that you might share with all of your other friends. You can share more of that stuff later on, but as you're just trying to start off, I would just start mostly posting about writing stuff. But then for local things, NaNoWriMo is a great time to find other people in your local area. I'm sorry if you can hear my dog whining in the background.
Okay.
But I found some people, there was an Indiana writers group on Facebook, and I found an event happening, and I'm an introvert, and it was like a Sunday afternoon when I wanted to take a nap. I did not really want to go, but for some reason I went, and I have met with this group of people every Thursday night for like 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Because they're just such a great community. So I would say, even if you're an introvert, put yourself out there. A lot of writers are introverts, so you're going to find a lot of people who get it, and it's okay. it's just how a lot of us are. But I would say put yourself out there. Maybe not as much right now, like physically going to places with COVID and everything going on, but you can probably find some virtual events like this one, like the other events that you guys have done throughout the month with me and with other writers, and try to talk to those people. And like if other people are tagged, like you guys tagged everybody who came to that writing group. If you came to that and you want to meet more writers, go and check out all those people who were tagged and follow them and comment on their stuff and try to get to know them. And those are some ways to start a community, to start, you know, getting into the writing community.
Yeah, all good advice. I honestly didn't get into the writing community until I went to a writing workshop, and that's where I met Caitlin and Tiffany, and then we started this organization. So good lessons about putting yourself out there, and hopefully when things start to calm down with COVID and we can like meet in person, that would be awesome. That'd be a good opportunity to meet other people. But yeah, those are great tips. And I like that you met your friend online. Like you didn't even have to meet her in person to start that good bond and relationship and exchange chapters with each other and become critique partners. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
So where do you write? Do you always have to be at your desk, or do you change it up a little bit, or does it just depend on the book?
So the vast majority of time is at my desk. I have worked really hard to make a nice office, and I really love my office.
It is a great office.
Thank you. I've got all my books and stuff in here. I've got windows when the weather is nice, like it is today. I've got my window open. So like, this is the perfect place for me. I really love writing in coffee shops, but that's not happened a lot this year. I love when I am able to do that. I started out writing, my husband and I lived in his grandparents' attic for the first few months of our marriage. And so I started out writing on this little old, you know, really old flat couch right next to where he was very loudly playing video games. And that's how I started, and it is doable. It is not ideal, but it is doable. So, you know, you can write wherever you are. Get yourself some like gun range level ear protection and you can make it work. But yeah, mostly just my office now has gotten to be a really nice place compared to some of the places that I've written in the past. So that's my favorite place.
Your office is really cool. And I can tell that you've like really put a lot of love into it, and you're trying to go for a specific atmosphere. And I think that's really neat. And if anybody has not seen Savannah's office, just follow her, because you will see pictures of it, and it is so cool. I love it.
Thank you.
So we are going to move to the topic of being burnt out or feeling stuck. I think a lot of people right now, because of COVID, and, you know, it's really hard to create whenever a lot of bad things are happening in the world. And I think a lot of people in the writing community I've heard, and just in the creative community in general, are feeling like they're kind of lacking motivation. They're kind of in a slump. They're a little burnt out. So what do you do when you feel that way? And then how do you stay motivated and on track?
So I have discovered over time that a lot of times I need to take a break more than anything. I think it's really important to push yourself through things, but a lot of times with burnout, the more you push yourself, the more burnt out you get, and the more damaging it is, and the longer it takes to get over it. So there's a fine line, I think, between just struggling with the creative process and actually being burnt out. And only you can tell or guess which one you're dealing with. And I think it's just a matter of trial and error. Sometimes you need to push yourself more to keep going, and sometimes you just need to take a break. Sometimes it's, just quit writing for the night and go to bed early, or sometimes you need to refill your creative well with reading a book, watching. I recently, my last like writing slump, I binge watched all of oh, what is that show with Archie and Veronica?
Oh
Riverdale.
yeah,
I
yeah.
binge watched Riverdale. I kept hearing about it and kept hearing about it, and like 4 seasons were out before I had seen it. So I binge watched Riverdale over a few weeks and wrote a lot less, but I got, some like character ideas, and just like, it was just good to see like all these different characters. And I mostly liked it, but then there were some things I didn't like, and I was like, that's a thing not to do in storytelling, so it was just good to just take a break from writing and focus on other things. And it's a trial and error experimentation kind of thing to find out when you need a break and when you need to push yourself. Does that answer the
Hmm.
question?
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Okay.
it's really validating to hear somebody, especially somebody who, is known for being able to put out quality novels and who writes a lot, to hear like it's okay to take a break, it's okay to rest, it's okay to stop if you need to. Like for me, I know when I'm tapped. Like I just know. Like I just sense it. I'm like, okay, I gotta close the laptop, I gotta go away. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's good because I think there's a lot of pressure, especially during Nano, and people are like, oh, it's quarantine, so we should create, we should do all these things. And I think it's good to hear that. So thank you for saying that, because I
Yeah,
think we need to remember to take care of ourselves, right? Other than
absolutely.
just writing. Um,
Yeah.
so, what is one of the biggest lessons that you have learned from the first draft one, to getting published of your books? So, like from the whole process, what's one of the biggest lessons or takeaways you've gotten?
From the whole process, I guess to remember to have fun. Like there are parts of writing that are more fun than others, and revising can get to be really not fun.
Mm-hmm.
um, And I think it's just, maybe you just need to, do that in smaller sittings, break it up a little bit more, give yourself a little more time to get it done. Like, I think the most important thing is just to remember to have fun. Because, like I said the other night, like a lot of us are probably not in this for the money. We're in this because it was fun at some point, even if it stopped being fun at some point. And I mean, this, like, NaNoWriMo has like consumed my entire life in November. And if I wasn't having fun, like I'd be seriously wasting my time.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized at one point that I felt like it was just all grueling, and I was just like sick of it all. And I was just like, why am I doing this? And I was like, wait a second, if I keep doing this for 50 years, I'm going to have wasted my life at the end of that
Mm-hmm.
time. So I'm going to not keep doing that and being annoyed and focusing on, everything negative, and just try to remember to have fun. And if there's stuff that you really hate doing, maybe there's a way that you can pay somebody else to do it. Not always, but sometimes there is, if it's like social media things potentially.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can maybe try different methods for doing it, or just take more breaks in between doing it, or set up yourself some rewards in between things. Just find ways to make it the hard parts more fun, and remember to really really have fun in the parts that are already fun.
Yeah, I noticed that you give yourself rewards when you reach certain milestones with Nano. Like I saw that what did you give yourself a reward for? Starbucks for 50K?
Starbucks. Yeah.
Nice.
Because I had been having way too much Starbucks. There's one on the way to work. So I've been
Oh
going to
yeah.
Starbucks multiple times a week the past few weeks. So I swore off Starbucks except for when I hit 50K, and if I hit any more milestones, I can have Starbucks in celebration of that.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
really cool. That's a good little motivator. And it's a nice reminder that the rewards don't have to be expensive or
Oh
elaborate.
yeah.
They can be like little things too. That's really cool.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, Let me ask you about strengths and weaknesses as a writer. So, how do you find out what you're strong at and what you're weak at as a writer? Because that's something that I think a lot of people struggle with, because it's kind of like when you look at yourself in the mirror, like you see
Hmm.
something, but maybe you don't see what everyone else sees. So,
Right.
how has that been for you?
Probably good critique partners help you with that
Mm,
a lot. Because critique partners who are going to, be honest and not afraid of hurting your feelings in that they're letting you know where the weak points are, but they're nice about it and they don't tell you that you're a terrible person and you're never going to succeed. You know, like you don't need people who are going to do that kind of stuff, but people who are honest with you about places that could be a lot better and who also, you know, throw out some ideas of how you could make it better. I've learned a lot about, I mean, from editors and from critique partners, really, I've learned a lot about places that I'm stronger at and places that I'm weaker in. And, you know, I've grown a lot just because of the massive amount of feedback that I've sought out and gotten from people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, that's really good.
yeah, a critique partner is a great way to go for starting out, you know, like get your manuscript as good as you can get it by yourself with a couple of drafts and then send it out to somebody else and get some outside feedback.
Yeah, that's really good advice.
And there's probably some strengths you have that you don't realize you have because it's just how you do things, you know? So you might not realize that you're actually really good at something, that it takes somebody else to show you that.
Yes, absolutely. I was going to ask you too about like imposter syndrome. So how do you overcome that? And do you feel that a lot? Because I think that's something that a lot of writers get and a lot of creators talk about. And you know, especially if you're getting critiqued and you're like, okay, maybe I'm not good enough. Like, look at all these things I need to work on. So how do you get over that imposter syndrome or deal with that?
I think for me, I've decided that I love writing and I love the community enough that I can put up with the knowing that I'm not as good as a lot of other people and dealing with, you know, sometimes I'm going to get bad reviews. Sometimes I'm going to have somebody say something mean to me and that's just part of it. And it's worth it to me because there's so many other good things. Sorry about my dog.
No, it's okay. I have a dog that whines all the time too. She's just downstairs. Yeah. I totally get that. But yeah, that's a good point because I know that a lot of people wonder, okay, am I going to be good enough? Is this good enough? Maybe I'm just pretending everybody's going to find out that I'm not really a good writer. But yeah, focusing on the positives, that's good. Like your strengths, your wins, all those kinds of things.
And the facts for every single writer there are some writers who are better at writing than you and some who are not as good at writing as you. And a lot of it has to do with how much time you've spent writing. If you've been writing for a year, you know, even consistently, there's lots of people who've been writing a lot longer than that. If you've been writing consistently for 40 years and you've published a whole bunch of books, you know, there's just always going to be some people who are just not better than you, but more experienced at writing. Or, you know, some people, like I, at one point was really jealous of some people who I know who are able to write full time because their husbands make enough money that they can make a smaller amount of money and still, you know, they can make a little bit of money from writing on the side and they get to spend their entire day writing from home. And I'm like, I wish I had that much time. But it's just, you know, like everybody just has a different schedule and you just can't compare yourself. And like, you know, some people have kids, some people don't, some people have 2 jobs for whatever reason. Like there's just so many different factors in people's lives that you do not see on Instagram. And I might be getting a little bit off topic here, but you just can't compare yourself to other people. And because you're going to get imposter syndrome from that and it's going to just stunt your growth and not be helpful in any way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that in this, in any creative pursuit, but especially in writing, I think a lot of people are their own worst enemies and they get in their own heads and that's what makes a lot of people stop writing. And I always think like, if I just keep writing, then I will find some success. It may not be the success I dream of all the time, but I'll find some success. I'll find some win if I just keep putting words down on a page.
Exactly. And for anyone, as long as you're enjoying the process of it, or at least most of it, there's always going to be some parts that are harder to get through, but as long as you're enjoying the process and you're enjoying your time in the community, then even if you don't achieve huge success, like you've enjoyed your life. So it's okay. Like, you know, because like there's so many stories of people who've achieved like all this amazing success, but they've estranged their family, they've lost their health. Sometimes they end up losing all the success anyway from a stupid mistake or from, you know, stuff you can't control. So as long as you're enjoying the process and, you know, you can know you're not wasting your life on something that you're hating doing in the hopes of one day in 20 years getting $1 million book deal, you know, like I think as long as you're enjoying it, like that's the main thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Find the joy, chase the joy.
Yes, absolutely.
For sure. What made you decide to self-publish your first novel?
So this is a great question. I guess I was following. I'd never heard of self-publishing, and I didn't really know much about traditional publishing. I didn't know there were two different kinds. And as I was first getting into the community on Instagram, I followed some people, and somebody had posted about the differences between the two. And being like a somewhat business-minded person, I was really intrigued by the idea of being able to like choose my own cover designer, choose
Hmm.
my own editor, choose my own formatter, like interview people, decide who to work with. And also like I don't want to ever be characterized as a controlling person, but I really like having control over my covers.
Hmm.
And so like hearing people talk about how they don't have control over their covers, I was like, but what if I
Yeah.
know exactly what I want the cover to look like? So I think initially it was partially because it could happen faster and partially because I really enjoyed like the business aspect of it.
Mm.
Marketing, not so much, but all the other business things besides marketing, I really enjoy.
Yeah, it sounds like you made a lot of good choices because your covers look gorgeous, your books read,
Thank you.
just like I wouldn't be if you were to give me a traditionally published novel with a professional editor, like from a publishing house that did it. I mean, the quality is so great that I think that you have the mind that can do that. Because I don't know if everybody is as business minded, but I think you've made it really work for you, which is really cool. Um, yeah,
Thank
your
you.
covers are awesome. Who does your covers?
Ingrid Nordley. I think it's at Arctic Paintbrush is her
Okay,
Instagram handle.
okay.
She's also done my character art, which I can't reach at the moment, but this she did this dragon that my friend put in a
Oh
library picture. So
wow, that's
that's
so
she did
pretty.
this. Yeah, she's amazing and she's so affordable. I if anybody wants her information, DM me and I will send it to you because she's just phenomenal. Her customer service is amazing. She sends you drafts, like you can there's lots of opportunities to say, can you tweak this way? Like she's fantastic. I love her.
That's awesome. I think it's hard to find good cover art sometimes when you're self-publishing and you definitely hit the
Yes.
jackpot. It's really gorgeous. And I
Thank
know
you.
they say don't judge a book by its cover, but it definitely I actually ran into your book for the first time at the high school where I teach. It was in our library, and
Oh,
that's
really?
what drew me in. Yeah, because I teach at Southport High
Awesome.
School, and I know Tara, so I think she
Awesome.
had you guys at the at a book fair or something. You read aloud,
Yeah, at
and she
Barnes and
bought
Noble.
yeah, and she bought some copies and put them in the library. So that's where I read your first book, and the cover drew me in. It was really intriguing. So kudos to your
Awesome.
cover
Thank you.
artist and to you for having a good vision for that. That was really cool.
Thank you.
Um, let's see. So, out of your novels that you've written, both published or unpublished, which has been your favorite to write so far and why?
So this always changes. Whatever I am drafting is my favorite and I love it. And whatever I am revising is my least favorite because revising is less fun than drafting. I look forward to NaNoWriMo all year because basically my schedule has turned out that I always draft a new thing in November and I spend the rest of the year revising it or revising other projects and, pursuing various things. But like drafting always happens in November for me. And so currently, The Whisper of a Weapon is my work in progress that I just announced to my email subscribers. And it's part of the Casters of Renford series. And that is my current favorite.
That's awesome. That sounds really cool. I love the
Yes.
title there too. It's really neat.
Thank you. I yeah, I've actually come up with all the titles. It's a 5 book series and I've got all the titles except for the last one because I need a word that starts with a T and I haven't been able to decide on it yet. But I can't wait to announce all the titles. They're very awesome.
That's cool. That's really awesome. Yeah, I think
Thank
you
you.
kind of have to be really in love with the book you're currently drafting, right? In order to
Yes.
get through it and
Yes.
make it so good. That's really
Yes.
cool. Do you see the growth that you've had from your very first book to now? Like, can you tell how different your writing is?
Dramatically, so dramatically. I get writer's block so much less because I've developed a great way of outlining that works really well for me. Like when I was first writing the Gwythinian, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just, putting ideas out there and trying to clean them up and it was so messy. And going back to revise the third book in this series, which I wrote in 2017, like 3 years ago me with way less experience, that was a fiasco trying to edit that thing. Now that I can see how much farther I have come, like I can definitely say there's been a lot of growth. So stick to it because the growth does come. It can feel like it's taking forever, but all the days that felt like it was going slow and I was never going to improve, like I can look back and now that there's been, a long enough collection of those days, I can see that there has been growth. It's just really slow sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. I look back at the
Yeah.
first thing I wrote and I look at what I'm writing now. And I'm like, wow, I'm completely different. And you don't think that you're growing while you're doing it, but you are.
Because it happens so slow.
Yeah,
Like,
it's important
yeah,
to remember that.
yeah.
Okay, so speaking of your novels and your growth, um, we're going to switch topics a little bit. What is one of your favorite non-writing related hobbies?
Well, if you saw my Instagram takeover, you know the answer to that question. That is all of my exotic pets. I have 6 pet rats and 2 pet dragons, and I also have a dog. And just, I don't know, they're cool to look at, they're fun to play with, like, and I also, there's actually a lot of information out there recent about being able to train rats and reptiles. Rats
Oh,
are
wow.
actually highly intelligent, and if you ever if you ever want to know, look up Shadow the Rat on YouTube. And the tricks this girl has trained the rats to do is incredible. Like, it's absolutely amazing. So I'm actually working on that with my rats. I would like to try training them to do some things. And Natural Encounters, who, if you've seen, have you ever seen the free flighted parrot thing at the zoo, Indianapolis Zoo?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So Natural Encounters Incorporated trained those parrots in,
Oh,
I think,
wow.
either Florida or Texas, and then brought them here and trained people how to work with them and everything. And their like training stuff is amazing. And I took a class they had recently on training reptiles. You wouldn't think they're
Cool.
trainable, but like they had trained a Komodo dragon to step into her harness to go outside for walks. And I
Wow.
mean, like the things that they have trained, and like, they've trained reptiles to go and like to touch a target with their nose, like you'd see a dolphin do in a dolphin
Hmm.
show. They're so much more intelligent than we think. So that is massively fascinating to me, and my biggest pursuit of, biggest use of my time besides writing is learning more about training animals. Especially, I would love to be able to train them to accept veterinary care more comfortably, because a
Hmm.
lot of times at zoos, um, animals are trained to do things that aren't necessarily like for entertainment, but for easier vet care. Like, there in the class I took, they had trained a tortoise to stick its neck out so that they could draw blood from its
Oh,
vein, its
wow.
neck, its jugular vein, to do blood work on it, because it was like,
Wow.
50 years old or something. And that's fascinating to me. And from
Hmm.
working in a vet tech as a vet tech in an exotic clinic, I see how massively helpful and how much it would ease the stress in everybody, in the vet and the tech and the owner and the animal, if animals were trained to comfortably receive vet care. So that is, I could talk about that for a long time, but that's my biggest pursuit besides writing.
That's very cool. I like that you have a spectrum of like more sciency and more creative. I think that's really cool.
And one more thing about that, my friend Michelle, when I was first putting out my book, I had in my bio that I was a dragon wrangler, and I was gonna take it out because I thought that it sounded, weird or babyish or just not like it belonged in an author bio. And she said, "No, it's so unique. You should keep it." And I kept it, and I'm so glad that I did, because it makes me a more interesting author to have this like animal stuff that, because I thought I would, probably never let those worlds collide, and I would have, those friends and, those different things that are just not related and wouldn't, want to know about each other. But like everybody is always really interested in the pet dragons and that kind of stuff. And, writing about dragons and magical animals, it all ties together. My point in all that is, don't give up your other hobbies when you start writing. Like, even if you need to take more time away from those hobbies to write, don't give them up or feel like, feel guilty if you pursue other hobbies in addition to writing, because those other hobbies make you more interesting. Because literally everybody has wanted to write since they were 6 years old and was inspired by the same classics as you. So like, your
Hmm.
hobbies make you way more interesting and make your bio stand out a lot more.
Yeah, definitely good advice. I think a lot of people who are writers feel guilty sometimes that they indulge
Yeah.
in other hobbies because they should be writing, they should be finishing their book, they should be editing or querying or publishing. So that's a good reminder to pursue those things because they
Hmm.
definitely do make you stand out for sure.
Yeah.
I have another off-topic-ish question, like not on the topic
Yeah.
of writing. One of our followers asked, "Do you believe in ghosts or have any ghost stories you would like to share?"
That is a question I have yet to be asked. I've definitely never been asked that question before. So, um, as far as ghosts go, everybody feel free to disagree with me, but I don't believe in ghosts in that after people die, their spirit stays here and like haunts the earth. I think everybody has a spirit, and I think it goes somewhere else after you die. I think that there might be spirits on earth that are good or bad, but I don't think that they're the spirits of people who have died.
Mm.
That's kind of a religious thing, so I'm not trying to like foist my beliefs on anybody. If anybody has further questions about that, feel free to DM me and we can chat about it. I don't really have any ghost stories, but on the subject of like spirits in a good way, Elizabeth Gilbert's book Big Magic is really fun and kind of whimsical, and she talks about ideas kind of as if an idea is a spirit in a way, and that like an idea comes to you and you get really excited about working on it, and then if something happens and you don't work on it for a few years and then you come back to it, the spark for that idea might not be there anymore because it's gone to somebody else. And she just, it sounds funny with me saying it because I can't explain the whole thing, but if you read her book Big Magic, it's like a 4-hour audiobook, it's not very big. She explains how she met an author who ended up writing a book that she had an idea for that she ended
Mm.
up not pursuing at the time because of life circumstances, and like a few years later this other author wrote almost the same book that she had an idea
Wow.
for, and then she had gone back to it and it was like the spark wasn't there anymore, so she couldn't do it, and then this author came out with it, and it's such a cool story about how the idea like kind of like exchanged between them. And so I don't know if that's true, but I love like the whimsicalness of that possibly being a thing.
Yeah, that's a cool, unique way to look at ideas as spirits
Yeah.
that travel between writers, and that's really cool.
Hmm.
Yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
indulging that question. That actually was
Yeah.
a question I put on there. Some people, the people that know me know I'm into like creepy stuff a lot, but
Yeah.
that's not a question I put on there. Someone legitimately asked that. So,
Okay. Well, that
um,
is definitely a record question. I've not seen that one before.
the last question that I really have for you is what is one piece of advice you would give to any woman writer who's just starting out or who might be struggling with her writing right now? And I know we've covered a lot of topics like taking breaks and having fun and things like that. But if you had a new writer come to you and say, I need some advice, just one piece of advice, what would
Hmm.
that be?
I think the biggest thing is to compare yourself to your past self and not to anybody else. Because I like the most like crippled and discouraged I've been has been when I've compared myself to other people who were better than me and felt like I wasn't worth anything because I wasn't as good as them. And like that, it made me kind of hate the person who, I've ended up becoming friends with.
Mm-hmm.
But once I got over myself, but I mean, it can make you lose friendships, lose opportunities, and just, bitterness is just a thing that it's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die, like
Mm-hmm.
don't don't compare yourself to your past self, challenge yourself to improve, and have people that you look up to that you want to be like and you want to emulate, but don't compare yourself to them in a way that is you're not good enough unless you can beat them or be the same as them. Because like I said earlier, everybody's got different schedules, everybody's got different financial situations, different family situations, different health situations. You can't know everything. And like Instagram is a highlight reel. So, you
Mm-hmm.
see nice pictures of people at their fancy desks or with their makeup on or whenever they hit big goals, but you don't see when they're down in the dumps, when they're depressed, when they're sad, when they feel like they're no good, like you don't see that. So you might think that nobody else ever goes through that and you're the only one and you're no good, but everybody goes through that. Even the big fancy millionaires go through that.
Mm-hmm.
And just the most growth you'll see is comparing yourself to your past self. Like that's, and like doing that now, like comparing myself to my past self, I've grown a ton that I wouldn't have been able to grow if I had been focused on this other person who was doing more than me, who I was jealous of. So yeah, compare yourself to your past self, improve and don't compare yourself to other people, and befriend the people that you're jealous of, because I know somebody who bought a Tesla with the royalties of her self-published book. And like
Wow.
that, if I had been like a bit younger of a writer and had not dealt with my like jealousy issues, that would have like really bothered me. You know, I would have been like, what am I doing wrong? Why don't I have a Tesla? You know? But I think that's really cool. And also she's like 20 years older than me, so she's had so much more time to do things. So like I do not need to feel like I'm no good because I don't have a Tesla from my royalties. So I enjoy knowing that about her. I'm happy for her, and I want to, you know, I want to learn from her and be able to do the same thing she's done to get to that point. But I am not at all like envious of that in like a damaging way, and we're good friends. And so yeah, just befriend the people that you could be jealous of and choose not to be jealous of them, but to look up to them and learn from them, I guess. I know it's kind of a long
Yes.
answer.
No, that was a great answer. And
Yeah.
especially, you know, fellow women writers, I feel like we need to stick together and support each other. And there's so
Mm-hmm.
much competition in the world already. So I love that advice of just befriending people that you normally would be jealous of. It kind of
Yeah.
forces you to cheer for them instead of
Mm-hmm.
being sad. So that's awesome.
Yeah. I
All
would have
right.
missed out on some really big opportunities if I had continued to be jealous of these couple of people when I was experiencing lots of jealousy issues. But one of them has become one of my best friends, and I talk to in every single week. And another of them, both of them, I went on a trip to Canada with one time
Oh,
for a
wow.
writer's retreat, and like so many great opportunities that I would not have had if I had continued to let that bitterness like mess me up.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right that it can ruin friendships and sour that. So that's good advice.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, is there anything else that you want to talk about? Any upcoming things that we should look out for? Publication dates of your next book? Anything like that?
Well, the I don't I wish I could announce the publication date of book 3 in the Gwythinian series, but I can't yet.
Okay.
I have a date in mind, but I don't know yet because of the state of the world. We're gonna wait a little bit longer
Mm-hmm.
and see before before I make that announcement. But I guess if you would like to be the first to hear about any of those updates for me, if you sign up for my newsletter at the link in my bio, you'll be the first to hear things. I announce things on Instagram and Facebook a little bit after I announce things to my newsletter subscribers. So they're my core people who I announce things to first. But I know that we do have some winners to announce. Would this be
Yes,
a
we
good time
do.
to do
Yeah,
that?
this would be a great time. So just to recap, our winners are going to get, and I have them right here, so let me pull it out. You are going to get some really nice tea that Savannah donated, black tea, peppermint, orange peels, and chocolate in there. Sounds delicious. I honestly want some. Um, then you're going to get a signed copy of Savannah's first book, and you are going to get this really cute, let me find it. Yes, it's right here. This really cute dragon necklace with a little dragon pendant on it. And it's adorable and I love it. And we are going to pick we've chosen 2 winners randomly who participate in our contest. And Savannah, you want to go ahead and say who those people are?
Yes, the first one is Dark Mystic Knight, and the second one is Michelle Israel Harper.
Yay!
Yay!
We
Congratulations!
are so excited that you both won, and we will reach out to you to get your address, and I will get that out to mail to you this week. So congratulations, and enjoy those books and the tea and the cute necklace. Congrats! And we have one more big announcement that we want to talk about. So Savannah is going to be a guest judge in January. We are going to announce a short story contest for the Heartland Society of Women Writers. It's any genre that you would like. And we're going to tell you all the stipulations. There will be a grand prize winner and 2 runners up. And Savannah and one of our other guest authors that we will have next month are going to judge. So we are so excited for that. Savannah, do you want to give any words of encouragement to anybody that's thinking about submitting to a contest? Have you ever submitted to a contest, and any advice for that?
I have submitted to one short story contest. Short stories, I think in like trilogies, so it's hard
Hmm.
for me to condense
Yeah.
things down to a short story. But I know some people who are brilliant at it, and I do love to read really well done short stories. So I would say whether or not you've ever written short stories or feel like you're good at them, try. I would say you should, I mean, give it a try, because the worst thing that can happen is you can not win, but you will have learned. You will have written a new story that you might get expanded to something bigger. You will have stretched yourself. You will have expanded what you thought you could do before. So I mean, if like Neil Gaiman has that example of like your goals are this mountain, and your choices are your choices going to move you toward or away from the mountain. If you're looking to become, to get into the writing community and to become a better writer, odds are participating in this contest are going to be moving you toward that mountain of becoming, a more accomplished writer, getting more experience, meeting more people. So obviously only you know whether this is a good time in your life to do it, depending on what else you have going on or whatever. But I think most likely it would be a good thing to try. And if you're feeling like you're afraid of doing it, then you should definitely do it. If you feel like you
Hmm.
have too much going on because of whatever, um, that's a different thing that you'll have to think about. But if you feel afraid of doing it, you should definitely do it.
Absolutely. That's great advice, Savannah. We are so excited to have you help us judge, and we're going to announce a lot more details about this very, very soon. But if this is something that you're considering, like Savannah said, get your entry ready, start writing that short story, or go back through an old short story that maybe you've written before, or start brainstorming some ideas. I know that we're going to have another write-in next week on Wednesday. So it's a nano focused write-in, but if you want to come and work on that short story during that time, that would be great. We have some prompts that we can give you to help. And I know that you can reach out to us anytime that you need support or if you need advice. We are here for you. I'm sure Savannah is the same, right?
Yes,
All right.
definitely.
Well, thank you so much, Savannah. It was so great having you. And this was an awesome week. And we very much appreciate you. And I really just wish you the best in your writing career. We're going to be following you closely.
Thank you so much. And I wish you the best in your writing career as well, and can't wait to see where things go for you and for everybody else with the Heartland Women's Writers Society. It's been so great to get to know you guys, especially over the last week.
Yes, awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Have a good night. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.